Welcome to Parkinsons, an athlete's journey. I'm Eric Von Furlick, founder of EVF Fitness and Row House, training with Parkinsons since 2020.
And I'm Todd Vogt, Paralympic rower and coach, training with Parkinsons since 2017. Together, we compare notes on training, recovery, mindset, and what it takes to keep showing up. Let's get to it.
This podcast is not medical advice. Talk to your clinician before changing training, meds, or supplements. Okay, so we're here with 19-time Ironman Greg Schaefer. We're honored today to have him join us. He's a Parkinson's fighter, a CEO, and entrepreneur. He's defined by grit and resilience, and he's a podcast guest and keynote speaker. So you're also a dad of two. You mentioned that earlier, 13 and 14, which has got to be a handful for you.
Yes, it's great years, but challenging some days.
Do the boys do triathlons as well?
They don't. They did mini triathlons when they were younger. They did not grow up swimming, so the swim is a little intimidating for them, but they did it. And they did the kids dip and dash in Kona, which was a blast. One is a tennis player, my son Jax, who's 13, and one is a soccer player, James, who's 14. So very, very, very into sports, very busy with sports.
It's great when they have their own interest as well, right?
Absolutely. It keeps them out of arguments. Who's better?
Exactly. I have a 14-year-old who's a water polo player. It's kind of a lifestyle out here. It's water polo, spearfishing, surfing, body surfing, and all kind of, waterman sports. So he's fully immersed in that. And then I have a 21-year-old and a 9-year-old on the bookends of this. So I'm in for the long haul.
God bless.
It's nothing better. But let's dive into how you came to be diagnosed and became a special person in this special community.
Yeah, and I think it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that doing so many races, we know our body pretty well. We know when we need rest. We know when to recover. We know how to push the limits. And for me, I was diagnosed. I knew there was a problem in 2022 for Kona the second time I raced. I had raced it in 2019, so I knew what to expect. And I had a PR in Kona, which was amazing. I prepared really well. And the second time around, I was having some struggle in preparation. And I kept mentioning to my wife, I just feel like I'm not going to do as well this time. And we were planning on bringing my wife and the kids, and she needed to get them back for school and take the red eye home. And I said, babe, I don't think you're going to have time to make it to that flight and see me cross the finish line. So they decided not to come. And sure enough, I finished 2.5 hours plus longer.
Wow.
And in the pitch dark with a glow stick around my neck so they could see me on the run course. And I knew at the end of that race, something was going on and something was wrong.
Did you have a sense it was neurological, or did you think it was more muscular or systemic? Or
Yeah, the first signs were a calf cramp in Coeur d'Alene where I qualified for it. And I had never gotten cramps. I'm pretty good with fueling. And then I noticed my hand tremor after the race in the hotel for the first time. And I called my wife and I said, something's going on. So I didn't really think neurological at the time. And, when you finish a race, you've obviously had 15 gels, a lot of caffeine towards the end of the race. And, you just gave out everything that you possibly could in your body, in those elements. So clearly she said, like anyone would, go get some sleep. You're exhausted and,
right.
Get some rest and you'll be fine in the morning.
Yeah, it's really easy to dismiss those early signals, right? Not that it's going to help you do anything other than get a handle on it, but it's very tricky when you are used to using your body and using it hard to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, for sure.
So did you notice this in your training as well, or did it just kind of pop up? And
I noticed that it would take me, my mornings were a struggle. So my morning workouts were suffering, and I definitely was not getting the results that I did prior. So it was clear something was going on. I was and again, you're getting older, so you just chalk it up as maybe I'm just too old for this crap.
Right.
And I need to take it easy and stop drinking so much coffee, get more sleep, reduce some stress. And, you never think at 47, 48 years old that you're going to be diagnosed with something like this.
Particularly when you've been an athlete your whole life and you've taken care of yourself and you eat well and you know your body as well as you do. It doesn't make any sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then it makes you think back how many years prior those signs, right? Those pulled
Yeah.
calf muscles and, your forearm stiffness. And you wonder, gosh, maybe I had this for, since I was 46 and I just didn't know.
Well, you
So,
certainly haven't for a couple of years because it has to build up in your system.
yeah.
But it is mind-numbing to realize it after the fact of how obvious it is.
Right. Right. The signs are so clear when you understand it.
Yeah. So that was 2023, correct?
I was diagnosed in March 2023. Correct.
I was diagnosed in 2021 and I'm 59 now, or 60.
Okay.
So similar trajectory, and noticed a lot of the similar type of symptoms that were affecting my performance, but didn't directly attribute them to being neurological. If anything, I thought, much like yourself, it was a muscle strain, it was a cramp, it was nutritional, it was a lack of sleep, it was stress.
Hmm.
And I would say if you're hitting any of those, and you're listening to this podcast and you're hitting those, go find your neurologist quickly because it's most likely a very similar story.
Yeah. And the other sign was a frozen shoulder. That was a big sign that I missed and ended up getting shoulder surgery. And looking back, we realized that that's a common issue for young onset Parkinson's disease. And every orthopedic surgeon is not going to be up and thinking, they're looking at an MRI and an X-ray. So it was something that we discussed later that was Parkinson's related, probably.
Yeah, ironically, I tore both biceps and had my last bicep tear. We did the shoulder as well because of the MRI. And in large part, I still have a lot of discomfort in that shoulder, which is now I've attributed to the Parkinson's more than to the mechanical issues that I was having.
Exactly. Same.
So now, how many of these Ironman did you do prior to your diagnosis, and what have you done since?
Since I've done Chattanooga 70.3 twice and Puerto Rico 70.3 twice and Marbella, Spain 70.3 World Championship. So I've yet to do a full since I've been diagnosed. And my goal this year is to end the season with a full Ironman and check that box again and get a little redemption.
Well, good luck with that, and I'm going to be rooting for you.
Thank
It's
you.
a lofty goal, to say the least. We
It-
probably share a mutual friend. Are you familiar with Matt Long?
yes.
Matt's an old friend of mine, and he has an amazing story for those that are interested should look up the Long Run. But his comeback to do Ironman was a remarkable story, and I wish you the same success and the same luck with yours as well.
Thank you.
It's quite a challenge trying to keep the day filled with your training and your nutrition and your recovery and all the things you have to do in order to do these races. Has your structure been helpful in managing your diagnosis, or has it been more of a frustration point because you're not doing what you were previously doing to the same
No,
extent?
I've accepted that the race has changed for me
Right.
and I don't worry about time as much. You know, there is no podium finishes anymore. There wasn't any before either, so let me be clear about that. But the outcome is not as important as trying to finish, and I try and show up every day and give it 100%. So my training has definitely changed. The volume is not what it used to be. There are days that Parkinson's wins, and I have to just check the box and say, it's just not today. Today's not my day. And I would say most days are okay, managed, correctly with good workouts, medicine, enough sleep. But I can definitely say there are days that I'm just really struggling to get through it. And I feel so much better when I do try and get something in. But again, there's certain days where you're just like, did I miss my medication? Or
Right.
am I, it went from 10 to 15 hours a day, excuse me, 10 to 15 hours a week of training to, 7 to 10, I would say now.
And that's manageable for you?
It's manageable. I get most of my workouts, the big ones, on the weekends. So I do a long
Mhm.
run and a long ride on the weekends, and that's the bulk of my work.
There's a wonderful poem by Constantine Coffey called Ithaca. And it talks about, as much as you have a destination in your life to get to someplace, in this case, Ithaca, it's really the adventure that happens on your way to Ithaca that makes it special. It's not landing there as much as it is the journey that we're on. And I kind of feel like Parkinson's has highlighted that for the athletes in this experience.
Yeah, it's funny because my first race back, I missed the start line in 24 at Puerto Rico. And I had gotten a new doctor that said, Greg, give me 2 weeks and I'm going to make you feel normal again. And sure
Wow.
enough, because I wasn't really taking much medication the first year,
Hmm.
we were trying to get into a couple studies. And my wife is a physician who was trying to help me navigate what we can do before we get on all the medication. And we didn't know much. We were worried about side effects and long term. Since you're so young being diagnosed, you realize I'm going to be on this medication a really long time. So this doctor was right. In 2 weeks, I felt like a normal person again and went on all the medications I had to. And I signed up for Ironman Chattanooga, which was May 24. And that was, to your point, I did the race and I never realized how beautiful the mountains were in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And
Right.
I've done that race 4 times before. So
Yeah.
um, it was a different journey. It was the worst race of my life from a time perspective, but the most rewarding race. And to be there with my friends at the finish line. And I always joke, it's never good to have all your friends at the finish line waiting for you because it means you finished in last place. But that race will always be special to me because I was back. I was back in the race again.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's wonderful and inspiring to hear those stories. It's amazing how much we take for granted in our normal life that, really becomes highlighted because of Parkinson's. I think it's one of the many blessings I found in being diagnosed is that there's an appreciation for time and for life and for relationships and for the health that we still have and the ability the wherewithal, the mental mindset to get up and still push ourselves and still expect a lot from ourselves. It's the blessing of Parkinson's. And I don't know that you can become as good a sailor unless you go into rough waters.
Yeah,
Mantra.
the mantra I live by is, what you do during the calm is what makes you durable in the storm. And I think all these years of training has, given me the vision of I'm having a bad day, but I've also, raced an Ironman in Kona. So I compare it to mile 80 into the winds or the trade winds in, lava fields. And I say, if I could have done that, I can handle a bad day today. And it just gives me references all the time that no matter how bad it is, I was able to persevere through really tough times. And I press my kids all the time. I'm hard on them to show up and give 100% all the time. So I can't preach that and not do it myself.
Right.
So I tell people all the time the biggest blessing that I find through this diagnosis is I'm fortunate enough at the age of 51 to know what my why is. And that's to
Yeah.
be a better husband every day and be a great father for my kids and lead by example. So it's definitely changed my perspective. And I want to make sure that they see that I'll never quit. And I don't want them to ever quit on anything. So it's been a blessing to recognize that at a young age.
Yeah, it's amazing the impact it has on the kids. We had a guest, Mike McCastle, who has broken several world records, David Goggins' pull-up record and Wim Hof's ice immersion record. And he was raised by a dad who had Parkinson's, and he said he witnessed his dad go through hard things every day. And it inspired him that he can, do hard things himself. And he takes that on voluntarily because his dad didn't have that choice.
Yeah, and it's funny, they don't treat me any different from the day I was diagnosed to today. They're still hard on me. But I know they're listening to everything. I know they're watching. They're very smart young men. And I am fortunate that they work hard and they're great kids. But I just want them to know, there's challenges. Life throws at you curveballs all the time, whether it's a tough grade on a test, a team that you get cut from, or college recruiting, or even jobs. I mean, real life is hard, and
Yeah, that's for sure.
I just want them to know that you just got to show up and stack days, and good things will happen.
There's a great quote by Teddy Roosevelt that says, "I never envied a man or a human being that's had an easy life. I've only envied men that have had hard lives that have been well lived." There's a lot to be said for that. I pride myself on my grit and my tenacity and my ability to show up despite how I feel. I kind of, kick Parkinson's ass every day and wake up and, ready to go to work and go to battle. And it's an honor to have such a challenge in front of you. Life was almost too easy in a lot of ways previously.
Yeah.
So you wake up and you don't know whether it's going to be muscular or neuromuscular, or if it's going to be, a motor-based skill, or it's going to be brain fog, or it's always kind of whack-a-mole. And it never really surprises me what shows up because I'm expecting everything to kind of hit me. And I'm up for the battle more days than not.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head with the whack-a-mole. You just don't know. And I look at it a couple different ways, depending on how I'm feeling that day. But I'm fortunate and I'm blessed that it picked me, because I feel like I can handle it. And
Right.
it's Parkinson's is gonna win, but it picked the wrong guy for now. And I'm just blessed that it didn't happen to somebody else in my family. And,
Yeah.
as bad as Parkinson's is, there's a lot worse. So I feel on one part really blessed that it's me, and I can try and motivate people who don't feel as lucky to get up and keep fighting.
Now, you've had this mindset all your life. Is this pre-Parkinson's that you've had this mindset of take control and do the best you can? Or has this been just rediscovered or amplified because of your diagnosis?
No, I think it's grown over time. My mentality came from I was the youngest of four kids, so I
Wow.
was always trying to grab some extra attention. I
Right.
was a basketball player early on. I wanted to succeed in basketball, and I was never the biggest guy. I was never the strongest guy. And I had a lot of people tell me, you're just not good enough to play Division I basketball. So that was the first real test that I wanted to prove people wrong.
Hmm.
Then in business, my dad owned an insurance agency, and I wanted to open my own. And unfortunately, when he passed away, I decided a couple years later that I was ready to go try my own. And that's when I started in 2010. I started my own business in New York City. And I, again, was just had the chip on my shoulder that I wanted to prove to everybody that I could do it. And then, Ironman came, and I was terrible. I was so bad at it. And I just was determined to get better. And before I knew it, I've done many races, and here I am today, talking to you, diagnosed, and I just feel like all those life lessons have prepared me for this.
you brought the right mindset to the fight. And I had a buddy that was doing St. Croix with me, and he couldn't get his bike on for free, so he got frustrated and he went home and got his foldable bike. And he showed up at the race with his foldable bike, and he put a cardboard disc around the back wheel and went out and raced and finished in 4 hours and like 40 minutes and just absolutely destroyed the
Unbelievable.
field on his little fold-up bike. And it made me realize, as much as you can buy speed in triathlons, the guys that are the heroes are the ones that are showing up and just crushing it. No excuses.
That's that's unbelievable.
It's an amazing event. It's something that I wish I would have done more of, but the time at that point in my life, the time for training was somewhat limited. And so I got a taste for it, and it's definitely left a good impression on me. I, much like yourself, appreciated running through the vineyards of Martha's Vineyards, and where is that? It's in Rosarita.
Hmm.
Again, having a Parkinson's moment. Haven't thought about this in about 20, 30 years. Uh, but it was a beautiful, beautiful race. St. Croix was hell on earth. It was
Oh,
hot, it
I can't
was
even
hilly, it
imagine.
was windy, and I, much like your sons, was the worst swimmer in the event, and I made the mistake of swimming on the inside corner and got swam
Yeah.
over by 150, 200 other people in my wave, and saw the scuba diver down at the bottom waiting for me to join him.
Yeah.
And it was the last person out of the water, but caught a couple hundred people on the bike, and then caught a couple hundred people on the run. But it made me appreciate, if I wasn't going to figure out swimming, that triathlons wasn't going to be the sport for me.
Yeah, that's the only good thing about being terrible on the swim is you get a chance to feel like you're making a comeback and blowing
Exactly.
by people.
Exactly. Although, when the run starts in St. Croix, at least, the temperature is probably in the low 90s. The humidity's somewhere right around there. And there's usually a wind coming up that kind of makes it feel like you're walking into an oven.
Yeah.
It was a special race for a lot of years, and I'm glad to hear that they don't have it anymore because it was inhumane.
Yeah, they exchanged it with Puerto Rico for sure. They had a spot a couple years ago that they would run out on the ocean, and it was called the microwave, and it was
Yeah.
just brutal, but
And that was in
very, very
Rincon?
tough.
That was in Rincon, Puerto Rico?
Uh, San Juan.
Oh, it was in San Juan. Great.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the West Coast, I used to surf there a lot. It's a little hillier. My wife actually ruptured a calf muscle running the hills with me back in the day. And since then, she doesn't hill run anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame her. That's why
Oh, that's
Florida is
great.
beautiful. We get to run on flat and
So tell me about what a day in your life looks like currently.
well, I unfortunately Parkinson's has crushed my sleep routine. I'm sure you relate.
I went for a sleep test yesterday, so I'm in that same spot.
Yeah, I get a solid 4.5 hours of sleep. I have no problem falling asleep. I wake up really early, and it's usually debatable whether or not I'm going to fall back asleep on the couch with the dogs, or I just grab the cup of coffee and I start doing some work emails. So my team usually wakes up to a bunch of emails from me from
Right.
4:30 in the morning, and then we get the boys out of the house for school, and then I will try and get a quick workout in by about 7 o'clock in the morning, and check that box, and then I start to work, and I'll usually pick up the boys and they have sports, and then I'll try and get something in while they're working out themselves or later in the evening. So I try and get two workouts in instead of like a longer one early in the morning.
Oh, that seems to fill your day up quite a bit, especially when you're waking
Yeah.
up at 4:30.
Yeah, but it's I'd rather keep moving, keeps the mind busy, and I think that's better than sitting around trying to feel sorry for myself.
And do you have a race on the calendar?
I am doing the Boston Marathon in a couple weeks, and
Congrats.
this will be my second year in a row doing Boston. I am kind of limping into the race. I have a little bit of a calf injury now, and I'm doing the best I can to get miles in. And I've been fortunate enough to discover a lever movement, which is a product that goes on my treadmill that I wear neoprene pants, shorts, and it kind of suspends you and takes a lot of body weight off. So it's enabled me to, it's amazing.
So it's like the water treadmills that they used to have, or they had one with another buoyancy compensator. I forget how it was
Yeah,
developed, but
there's very expensive options like the Alter G that you'll see in a physiotherapy office, but
Mhm.
Lever Movement has made a device that goes on any treadmill. It's easily foldable, so you can pack it up and take it with you when you go on the road. And I would not be able to get the miles in for the Boston Marathon that I need to be able to race. So I'm hoping that with a little bit of swimming and cycling mixed in to get the endurance level up, that it's going to get me through. But in May, I'm doing Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga again. That's one of my sentimental races,
right.
and I'll be with a lot of friends.
Oh, that sounds great. Did you ever look into deep water running?
I haven't. I never want to go to the pool anymore unless I'm doing a quick swim.
There's a little PTSD from
Yeah, a little
training.
trauma, a little bit of trauma.
Well, the benefit of deep water running is your head is above water, so
Okay.
you're not immersed, but you wear a buoyancy belt that gives you enough flotation that basically your mouth is out of the water completely.
Okay.
And then you
Oh, that sounds
basically, your
hard.
stride is essentially like a cross country type motion, opposite arm, opposite legs, with more of a sweeping motion than
Mhm.
a running motion. And by leaning forward or leaning back, you can change it to uphill running or downhill running. And it's quite effective. There was a gentleman I used to train with in New York City back in the late 90s who had a class. His name was Doug Stern, and he had a class filled with Olympians, collegiate D1 runners, and 70 and 80-year-olds. And it was just this
Wow.
incredible eclectic group. And a friend of mine who was an avid marathoner at the time had shin fractures, and she wasn't able to do her training. So she went into deep water running, did it for about 6 months, came out and broke all of her previous PRs on her first
Wow.
race. And it's something that always stuck into my mind. But unfortunately, when Doug passed away, the training and the efficacy of the programming kind of went away with it. And it was kind of a moment in time that I felt fortunate to been exposed to it. But I always reference it because it was so impactful for me.
Yeah. That sounds like I had an injury in college and they put me in the pool. I had a stress fracture in my foot, and the trainer told me to go swim a lap, and I was absolutely exhausted. I swam one length. He goes, "No, no, no, you got to go there and back." And I said, "I'm already done. Let's." I can't believe these swimmers are swimming 6,000 yards a day. I was blown away.
Yeah. There's a handful of guys in the Ironman world that were in their 80s that were still doing Ironman. Back in the day when I was doing it, I met one at Vineman, and he said he did the very first Ironman in '76, and it was just him and a handful of friends in Kona, and he was a retired plumber, and at 65, he decided he needed something to do with his spare time, so he took up Ironman and had done 21 races since then, so it must have been, a handful of years, and I saw the last race, and it actually allowed him to wear a pull buoy because of his age and his history with Ironman. And he did Vineman half with me. I don't know where he finished, but he certainly finished. And to me, that was a remarkable event.
That is absolutely remarkable.
So you have a couple more years in you.
I
You're
I
not
hope
getting off,
so.
you're not getting off that easy.
No, they're gonna have to drag me off that course.
There's got to be days where you feel like you're kicking Parkinson's ass, and then days where it's kicking your ass, and it kind of becomes like I use the analogy of a multi-round heavyweight fight. I may be winning in one round, but I don't get too confident because there's another round coming up. And I'm sure you have the same approach. And there are days where you don't even notice it, and there's days where it's just completely dominates your existence. So how do you manage with that?
Yeah, I use the word resilience all the time, and if you, I try and show up every day, and I don't want to lie and say that every day is I'm able to show up, because there are days where I need to just say today's not the day, and it's not always physical, as you know. There's mental days where you feel like you're defeated, but for me, the blessing that happened to me was there was a video done in Ironman 70.3 in Marbella, Spain, that Ironman took. And I was fortunate enough to get that was posted on Instagram. And that started an Instagram page for me, G Schaefer Undefined. And the outpouring of love and messages of encouragement and thank you notes that it motivated other people has really been a source of motivation for me. So I use that, and I look at it every morning when I wake up, and I usually have a note from somebody that has taken the content that I've put together. So that really energizes me, because I can't sit here and try and motivate other people and quit myself.
Right.
Um,
Well, your content is amazing, by the way. I dove into it a little bit, anticipating this conversation, and it's inspiring. It's beautifully done, and it's just quite remarkable what you manage to do on a daily basis. So I know you don't cover some of the
Thank you.
lowlights, but the highlights look amazing.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I think I need to be a little bit more vulnerable and show the low points that exist, and not everything is roses. So I think that's a great comment, because I've reflected a little bit about posting a lot of the highlights and the good moments, but there are a lot of struggles that come along with it.
Yeah, the apathy was the thing that caught me off guard. Doubled down on my exercise when I first got diagnosed, and was fully prepared mentally to tackle difficulty, but I wasn't prepared for the apathy. And when the apathy hit, it kind of sent me sideways. And then a back injury soon followed. And not only did I have apathy, but I had no capacity to walk or run because of the back pain, which I attribute to being psychosomatic. But the pain nonetheless was real, and it limited the options of being able to exercise and distract myself with exercise. But that apathy led to depression, and unfortunately sent me sideways for a couple of years. I was present, but I wasn't myself, and I certainly wasn't a person that I was going to be posting anything about kicking ass on Parkinson's. I was getting my ass kicked for a steady 2.5 years. But I kind of feel like that's an under discussed point of the difficulty. I would take the pains and aches and motor-based stuff a lot quicker than I would take on the mental challenges of the apathy and the depression.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle. I mean, I think we all struggle from the mental aspect, because it's hard to express what you feel on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for me when it affects people around me the most. And during the evenings, I have a very short fuse. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and my patience are limited. So knowing when to just kind of disappear and go get a few minutes by yourself is important. And I don't always, I'm sure my kids will tell you, I don't always do a great job of that. But trying to talk about it helps. And knowing when you're in those moments is hard, but you have to try and take a few minutes for yourself and go for a walk, or go outside with the dogs,
Well,
and
that's what
just
dogs are
kind of
for.
reset. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I was on a podcast last week, and in the middle of it, unfortunately, a solicitor came to the house, opened our front gate, and my dog got out. And within minutes, I got a phone call, and he got hit by a car on the highway, broke his front paw, and this whole thing kind of went sideways, and it made me appreciate just how much he's fine now. But surgery and lots of hand holding, lots of antibiotics and such, lost a couple teeth as well. But made me realize how much my day is filled with my dog's affection and attention, and
Yeah.
walking him, and the community that I have from walking him, and the other dog owners that we meet, and friends, and, neighbors, that just because I'm out of the house and I'm moving around more.
Yeah.
So my buddy is laid up, and he feels like I do most days, up to do an adventure, but the broken paw is kind of holding him back a little bit. And with me, it's the Parkinson's is kind of holding me back a little bit. But the sense and spirit for adventure is alive and well in both of us. So the apathy doesn't last if you find purpose and meaning in life beyond yourself. And I kind of feel like if you can force yourself to work out a little bit, even if it's the opening the door of the gym, it's a start. And those first reps are the hardest usually to get going. But once you get some momentum, and then you feel the community around you, and that's inspiration that people seem to derive from us in our struggle, it starts to pale in comparison to when lone wolfing it and trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. For me, I need to have a set schedule, and the biggest motivation for me is having someone join me. And for example, swimming, I have a friend and he's turned into a coach where I say, we'll meet tomorrow at 7, and I don't want to let him down. And if it
Right,
was up to me, I'd wake up and go, maybe I'll do it at 7:30. But when I know I got to meet
right.
somebody, it holds me accountable. So I think that's probably one of the biggest advice I would give somebody is ask somebody, you want to go for a walk tomorrow morning with the dogs at 7, and you're going to get up 6:30, have your coffee and go do it. Cycling, definitely with a buddy, I think it gives you a little bit more motivation than trying to just do everything on your own.
Yeah, and it's the nature of the type of training that we do is it takes so much time. It's always hard to find someone to join you. But if you can get an occasional buddy to join in, it definitely makes it a lot more tolerable.
For sure.
So what has been your takeaway from this experience with Parkinson's for these past 3 years?
Well, my wife and I started Forward Motion Fund, and that's our next chapter. And I feel as though now my job is to help raise awareness. And I love to get messages from people who were recently diagnosed because I was lost for a year. And I try and help people and prepare them mentally, right? For
Yeah.
that first year is a challenge because you're scared, you don't know what it means. Your family doesn't know what it means. And we've taken that and we try and want to give, we want to give back, support research. There's amazing foundations out there that are doing great things like Michael J. Fox. I mean, no one's done more for research than his foundation. So we are trying to help the family members of people that have diagnosed with Parkinson.
Right, because
And
if you have Parkinson's, your family has Parkinson's.
yeah, it takes a team around you to help you get through it. And it's hard on them. And I think they don't get enough support that they deserve because all the attention's on us. But we're going to try our best to bring awareness and donate money to the charities that we think are doing great things, and we're excited about that chapter. I'm raising money for Ironman Foundation this year, and an advocate for them. They're doing a lot of work for kids, and they're donating 1,500 bikes and 15,000 swim lessons this year.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're excited about that cause. And then research, there's no cure, as you know, and we have to be getting closer with AI, stem cell research. There's got to be something close, so we're just trying to do our part.
Oh, it's wonderful, and it's obviously appreciated by the community because a lot of what we're doing won't benefit us directly, but it's going to
No,
benefit people down the line. And so
right.
it's that old saying of, you plant people who plant trees are building shade for someone who they won't be around to witness. But It's,
Yeah.
it's remarkable the platform that we're given, and we're able to take all this experience that we've had and channel it in maybe a more productive way than just going faster in a race or just lifting a heavier weight, or where we spend so much time and effort and performance and doing the things that we do. At the end of the day, we have to ask how much of an impact does it actually have on the lives of those that are going through whatever challenge it is. Because as much as it's focused on Parkinson's, it's really everyone has an adversity that we know nothing about in your day-to-day life. And, if we can approach people with a little more kindness and a little more patience, it's probably doing a lot for them, because you don't understand their struggles. Just as if they saw the two of us sitting and having coffee, no one's thinking we have Parkinson's. But, the
Yeah.
reality is you walk away from that, and you have a whole new appreciation for the struggles that people have. And there's it's definitely a challenge for everyone, because no one's getting out for free.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the people that also support us have they need a release too. And there's a lot of stress and nervousness on their end, and they're constantly supporting us. And you have to take some time to think about. My wife takes a huge load off of my back, and
Is she your primary
sometimes
caregiver?
she's a dermatologist, but she's the smartest person I've ever met, and she's well read, and she's learned a lot about Parkinson's and
Hmm.
neurological disorders, and she's my rock, and I depend on her for all the medical decisions. She's well thought out, and I couldn't have been where I am without her. So I'm really fortunate, and that's part of why we're trying to give back, because there's a lot of people who are alone, or older and scared, and don't have the resources to get the care they need. So we're trying to be there.
That's a great point. It's something that I kind of feel like the caregivers don't get as much appreciation as they certainly get appreciation from us, but from the greater community that supports us, they don't get as much appreciation as they deserve. I've always struggled with allowing my wife to be a caregiver and still be my wife, and trying to split that baby's been very, very difficult and challenging at times. But I'm fortunate enough that where I'm at right now in my diagnosis, that the majority of stuff I can handle with enough emotional support. I can get through pretty much most of it. So I've opted to keep her as my wife primarily, and limit or outsource as much of the care to other people. But that can switch very quickly in life. And so it's something you have to learn to appreciate the days and the moments that you have together, and be thankful for what we can do instead of what we can't do, so you're more in control of how you respond, as opposed to feeling like you're a victim of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, Parkinson's Awareness Month. Maybe we should dedicate a week to the
Exactly.
caregivers.
Exactly. Well, it's been an amazing hour with you. We could do this all day, and hopefully we'll have another conversation. It's
I would
uh
love
it,
that.
it's super inspiring what you've accomplished and what you continue to accomplish. And is obviously you live to the defined by grit and resilience. You certainly embody that, but you're a hell of a nice guy on top of it. And I attribute
Thank you.
some of that to the Parkinsons, and I attribute some of that to just having good parents that raised you right. And you're doing that for the next generation. So thank you for everything you've done and the inspiration you've given us, and look forward to our next chat.
And thank you. I appreciate you having a platform to share with everybody. It's an unbelievable podcast, and I think people are gonna continue to love it. So thank you. I appreciate you thinking of me.
If this episode helped, share it with a coach, an athlete, or someone who needs a little momentum.
And if you have a topic you want us to tackle, send it in. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.